should work. Hello, and I'm pleased to join Sam Stepanyan here. And we're going to talk about OWASP Net Tacker Project and the Chapters Committee. So Sam, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, Zoe, for having me. My name is Sam Stepanyan. I am an independent application security consultant based in the City of London. I'm also OWASP London chapter co-leader. We have 3 leaders at OWASP London, and I'm also a co-leader of a very exciting, for me at least, OWASP project called OWASP Net Tacker. Yeah, that's me. I originally come from a software development background. I'm an ex-developer. I moved on into application security in 2005, 2006. That was prompted by something called PCI DSS, or Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, because that was the year when payment card industry in companies such as Visa, MasterCard, and American Express started asking organizations which take credit cards or credit card numbers online to provide extra security measures, and of course comply with OWASP Top 10. That no one knew what is OWASP Top 10 back in the day, and this is how I got sucked into this wonderful world of application security and started helping developers in writing more secure software and help them understand the security concepts and improve the CI/CD pipelines, introduce tooling and training and lots of other exciting stuff. So that was my journey. So this is me.
Awesome. Great introduction. So, mentioning that, back then, not many people have heard of OWASP or the OWASP Top 10. And I realized, thankfully, more and more developers are more and more familiar with the OWASP Top 10. But sometimes they're familiar with the Top 10 as they should be, but they're not familiar with the community. So how can we fix that problem? I know you lead the chapters committee. So how can we fix that problem by making more global standards for the chapters themselves?
Yes, you're absolutely right. So we have a problem of awareness, which is one of the issues, because of course not many developers know that OWASP is not only top 10 or some secret organization which sets up some standards, which is not, because we're all volunteers. So we all just regular people volunteering our time to help out everyone to write more secure software. But what a lot of developers don't know, that we run chapters, we run meetups, and of course what I keep telling everyone, that OWASP is like the original cybersecurity meetup, and at least for us in London, we've been going on since 2004. Even though I started attending West London chapter meetups, I think in 2008, 2009, that was still a very exciting time, because probably that was the only, what we call meetups these days, meetings of like-minded individuals who are trying to, run seminars on topics of application security, and of course, involve as many developers as possible. There are lots of other meetups happening, which are run for developers and by developers. And I think this is where our opportunity is to introduce ourselves, submit talks. So this is one of the ways how we can reach out. Of course, I'm also working with outreach committee, trying to see if we can be present as OWASP to have our own community booth at various developer conferences. And of course, I do go and participate myself in many developer events and meetups locally in London. And this is what we encourage everyone to do, and talk to developers and ask them how they approach topics of security, if they're aware of various OWASP projects and tools. Quite a few heard of OWASP Top 10. Again, you're absolutely right, Zoe. It's interesting that developers would probably know what cross-site scripting or SQL injection is. Quite a few heard of them, but they don't really know that it's a part of OWASP top 10. And very, very few heard of things like application security verification standard or OWASP SVS. And of course, this is probably one of our one of our goals as an organization to basically to reach out to various development communities and introduce ourselves to them and tell them about all the awesome resources that we have at OWASP. Lots of tools, projects, books, guidelines, standards, lots of video recordings from so many conferences that we run over the years that will help them to understand security and make not just their software secure, but of course their CI/CD pipelines as well, and also, of course, help them automate things as well. So, yeah, I think we should do more of that. And as you know, I think you'll participate yourself in an outreach committee. We're also trying to reach out to the hacker community as well, to the various DEFCON groups that exist in different countries, to BSides conferences, and just generally raise community of OWASP as a community and not as a standard setting organization, because OWASP as a community is absolutely cool. Totally driven by volunteers. Not many people know that it's purely volunteer driven, and there are volunteers in almost every single country in the world. So OWASP was almost everywhere. So just if you don't have a chapter in your own city, you can always start one. And of course, this is one of the goals of OWASP chapter committee that I currently chair, is basically to make sure that the OWASP chapters, whatever the community exists, and basically these chapters are healthy, are thriving, they have all the resources which are needed for them to succeed. So they have all the tools to help them organize events, help them find sponsors, food and drink, speakers, and lots of other stuff. So that's basically one of the goals why we created OWASP chapter committee.
Great. Yeah, I mean, and as an OWASP chapter leader, I can say that, all those things just, take away a lot of the, the little things that kind of add up in terms of preventing us from hosting all that we should be, reaching out to all that we should be, and doing the most that we can.
Exactly. And you're absolutely right. So this is why the chapter committee that I created, let me share my screen, is basically to help basically the foundation to promote the OWASP mission through chapters, make sure that all the chapters are supported. Another very important thing that we are also trying to do is also to help promote student chapters. Again, not many people know that OWASP also has student chapters. So if you're a student in a university, particularly if you are involved in computer science or cybersecurity courses, you can set up an OWASP student chapter. The only requirement is that there should be a minimum of 2 leaders, one from, of course, the students, and one from the leader from the faculty, and we will totally help and support this kind of community. I presented recently to quite a few universities based in London to the cybersecurity students there, and they have something called Cybersecurity Society. But when I told them that they can actually make it an OWASP student chapter, a lot of them became very excited and said that they would love to join. And of course, the reason why we created OWASP chapter committee is that we, the people who currently comprise the OWASP chapter committee, are experienced or seasoned OWASP chapter developers, where the people have been running chapter events for a very long time, and we attended other events and conferences. So we've seen what works, what doesn't, and we're here to share our experience really and share our knowledge with other OWASP chapter leaders and the ones who are just starting up, to help them to understand how to run the chapter, what they need, how to how to encourage OWASP membership and participation, how to encourage people to come to the events, how to do things like even social media promotion, work with Meetup, and lots of other interesting things. Another important mission that we are doing as an OWASP chapter committee is we are helping OWASP staff in some of the operational processes, because as you know, OWASP staff only consists of seven paid members. Everyone else is a volunteer. That's the reason why we also have a committee, which is there to help out with topics such as new chapter creation or reviving inactive chapters. Also looking at some of the defunct chapters, also trying to understand why the chapter is inactive and try to do everything we can to help chapters to restart their activity, particularly now, of course, after the coronavirus pandemic.
Awesome.
So that's us, and you can see who is the current committee members, and is all the experienced committee members who are previously, well, and currently are all OWASP chapter leaders and their respective countries. And we also have two members, Avi and Vandana, who are our supporters from the OWASP Global Board.
Awesome.
So that's us.
Yeah, I mean, the extensive list of names that, are involved just really speak to the importance of what you're doing. And, the student chapters being among them, it's just a great opportunity to transition from being a student to being a professional.
Exactly.
And, all of it, the chapters being part of an open source organization as well is just ideal.
Exactly. And one of the cool things that we provide for all chapters is resources, which is another thing that I would like to mention to everyone. So when you start up as a chapter leader, you don't really know how to run the meetings, what you need, and how to all the resources that you require. So we put together this very handy resources for chapters GitHub repository, which can be found here. And basically, look, these are all the various things that we provide to chapters. So this is in a GitHub format, but here you can also see that we provide things like Google Slides. So if you are trying to do your chapter meeting, we will provide with presentation templates, which will tell your attendees about OWASP, about all the latest and greatest projects and conferences, how to become a member, and how to contribute. So all these templates are available. There's also a presentation template for speakers as well. We will also help out with things like banners, right? Because it would be good to have a banner as well at a conference or at your meeting, and people just don't know where to get them. So we've got all that. Talk about all the board games, so things like cornucopia, snakes and ladders, where to get OWASP books, some helpful advice on chapter administration, how to run capture the flag events, flyers, a chapter handbook is something that we're currently working on. So it's one of our goals as a chapter committee. So we started from creating the chapter policy, then we moved on to the regional chapter policy, and now our sort of current item of work is the handbook, which is basically the handbook to help all the chapter leaders to run the chapters. Again, you will find also things how to find sponsors, how to print stickers, t-shirts, how to run virtual events. So there is an advice on how to use Zoom and the live stream on YouTube. And one of the very important things is that we're running something called OAS Speakers Bureau. And that is basically a list of speakers that chapters can invite to present at the event. So these are names of people who very kindly shared their contact details and the topics on which they are experts on to talk about, because of course we know that one of the biggest problems for organizing a chapter event is, of course, it's a seminar, and you need to invite people who can speak on a particular topic relating to application security and cybersecurity. And finding these people sometimes is not that easy. And this is one of the goals of our chapter committee, is actually help everyone to find speakers for the chapters. And of course, back in the, well, we're still, I think, in the pandemic situation where a lot of chapters still running virtual events, and a lot of chapters been actually utilizing that to invite chapters from all over the world to speak at their local events. We've done the same thing as well at OASP London. We had speakers from United States, from Canada, from Germany, even from Ukraine, presenting their talks. Now we're returning back to the sort of in real life and kind of hybrid format, which is very good because now back to face-to-face networking, of course, with all the COVID precautions. But yeah, of course, then people can still utilize the speaker list and invite people who are based in their city or in their country. So these are some of the things that we've been doing at the committee.
Really great. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the globalization of speakers and just the accessibility that comes with that has been kind of a silver lining of everything being remote for a while. But I'm very excited for the networking in person coming back. And it's great to see just such big names in the AppSec world on that list. Just says a lot.
Yes, and it's fantastic that so many prominent speakers are willing to donate their time and speak at the OWASP events. Yeah, I think we're really honored because we had some absolutely amazing speakers over the years.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, so many amazing speakers. Great community. And
Exactly.
talk about extending community, extending to developers and to hackers as well. I know that you're a project co-lead for NetHacker, and that's more on the offensive side. So do you want to speak to that as far as, I guess starting from the hacker outreach perspective?
Yes, I think NetHacker has been an absolutely fantastic tool for us to get into the hacker conferences, because we presented the project at Black Hat Europe originally, where everybody loved it. Let me just share my screen so you could see what the project looks like. So this is our OWASP NetHacker project. It is very unusual for me as well, as being a defender and application security person. I'm talking about working on a project which consists of words network and attacker. But when you realize the potential of that project, and of course, the great thing about NetHacker is that it appeals to a very wide audience. To, of course, the appeals to hackers or security engineers, security testers, penetration testers, also to the bug bounty hunter community, because of course it's a tool which helps with penetration testing and information gathering. But it also appeals to organizations, particularly startups or charities, who perhaps don't really have the big budgets to go and buy vulnerability scanners or tools which help them to create asset inventories or perform what is these days called attack surface enumeration. Or attack surface monitoring. So OWASP NetHacker solves this problem because it's absolutely free and open source tool. Of course, from OWASP, it is created by students as a part of Google Summer of Code initiative. And Google Summer of Code is a very, very interesting initiative set up by Google. Let me just go and open it up. If you don't know what that is, it's a internship by Google, which allows students to spend their summer breaks to work on open source software and improve it. So there are a lot of organizations participating in Google Summer of Code. So you see there's lots of organizations here, and OWASP is just one of them. So if you're a student and you want to learn a lot and you want to help open source community, I believe that Google Summer of Code is absolutely awesome As you can see, there are 198 organizations participating this year in Google Summer of Code, which is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, and what the students need to do is they need to apply. So they need to choose a project that they feel that, as you can see, is OWASP is one of them. The students should then basically write an application and like an essay to say why they want to improve a particular project. So here's our ideas for this year. So we have, for example, Juice Shop is one of the projects who's going to benefit from Google Summer of Code. Also the OWASP ZAP, OWASP Mariam project, which is another newcomer, a very interesting project around open source intelligence. There's a DevSecOps maturity model this year, security, Python Goat, new project called Purple Team. You can see quite a lot of projects participating in Google Summer of Code this year, including ThreadDragon as well, Web Application Firewall. Look at this. This is absolutely amazing. How many various free and open source projects from OWASP are available there for students to work under the mentorship of experienced professionals to basically contribute their skills into all these amazing projects. So I think it's absolutely fantastic. So there you go. That is how Google Summer of Code works. Usually applications start in March. And then throughout the summer, the students work. Of course, the seats, so-called, are allocated by Google, and then yeah, it repeats every year. So and every year there will be a Google Summer of Code for OWASP, and of course we're very privileged that the OWASP Netaka project was chosen, and we had lots of students working on it and helping us to create this amazing project.
Really awesome, really awesome. And you know, as chair of the Women in AppSec Diversity and Inclusion Committee, I just I love this opportunity for diversity as well. In addition to, you know, transition from being a student and the internship perspective, just having that opportunity to learn from the best, to contribute to something, you know, vital to internet security. And
Exactly. So there you go. I know we're quite short of time, Zoe. So I would like to give a short demo of Netaka as well, because I think people appreciate actually seeing how this tool works in real life. So I'm going to use a previous version of Netaka, version 002, because it's a stable version, to demonstrate using a Netaka for a recon task. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at OWASP.org. Again, I would like to remind everyone that OWASP Netaka is an offensive security tool, and as such, it should only be used on targets that you are allowed to scan and allowed to test. So OWASP participates in bug bounty program through a background, which means that it explicitly allows developers to perform security scans, but always check. And of course, if you're a pen tester, you should have a written permission from the organization. So what is OWASP Netaka? If you just run Netaka with no parameters, use Python 3, what's going to happen is just going to spit out a lot of the usage instructions. And this is what I first did, so I didn't understand what this project did. There's lots of objects, lots of options here, and I was completely lost. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But it's actually very, very simple, because OWASP Netaka is like a Swiss Army knife kind of tool. So it requires two parameters. So one is -I, which is what are you going to scan? So let me choose OWASP.org as a domain. I can also scan just one IP address if I want. I can, for example, do something like that and just say, okay, I want to scan just one IP address, or I want to scan the entire subdomain or domain name, in this case, OWASP.org. And then as a M, you define the module, what you want to, which module you want to use to scan, right? And there are various modules. For example, port scan is one of the probably most popular modules, which is quite similar to Nmap, but I think it's much more much easier to use and easier to understand than Nmap. So port scan is quite popular. Another very cool module is a subdomain scanner, which I think is need to be shown. So basically, this module will perform a passive scan of all the subdomains of your target, and it will try to list them. And one of the cool things about the OWASP Attacker subdomain scanner, as you can see when I see all the subdomains of OWASP.org. There's a secure flag, call to battle, training, Austin, contact, lots of subdomains that we have. One of the cool things about OWASP Attacker tool is that you can also combine modules. So you can chain them. And let me just show you something. So for example, one of the modules that we have in Attacker is called server version vuln. So server version vuln, which module which will allow us to see if the web server is leaking its version or what it's running in a server banner or in a response header. Because by default, a lot of web servers, they will actually display what they're running and what the version. So if I run it at OWASP.org, you can see it doesn't show us the version number. It just says Cloudflare, which is great. But you can see that both ports are open here. Okay. And there's another module which is called X powered by. So X powered by is another very simple module which basically checks if there is a X powered by header which is being leaked by the web server, disclosing maybe the version of the software which is being run on the server, like a version of PHP or ASP.NET. Okay, so as you can see, I can now run two modules at once, and you can see they both work at once. So it discloses that there is a ranks and CW being run on OWASP.org. But what is cool is I can also combine these two modules. I can build a chain of modules here with the subdomain scans with a -s parameter. And what this allows us to do, it allows us to build an asset inventory of all our subdomains, all the open ports, and the what kind of software they're running. So it's not just used for reconnaissance and penetration testing, but we can also use this combination to use OWASP Attacker as a network scanner and asset inventory tool. So as you can see now, all the OWASP subdomains are being scanned. So it's not just OWASP.org. And as you can see, Attacker now builds the whole database of all the targets that it scanned. There you go. You can see that we now get this table here. But what is also really cool about Attacker is it actually shows the results not just in a textual format, but it also stores them in a database. And it also has this very nice HTML report format that we can open, for example, in a browser. So here, my Kali Linux, I have Firefox. So let me just go and try to open this in Firefox, and you will see another very interesting feature of Attacker. You will see something just called penetration testing graph. And why is it so great? Because it allows us to visually to see the attack, and we can see every subdomains, or in case of the network scan, we will see all the various network modules, and we will see which vulnerability modules produced some result here. Why is it useful? Because, for example, you can see by the shape of the graph, I can see straight away that, for example, contact OWASP.org did not have the X powered by vulnerability. It just had the server version vuln. You can see all the previous scans, they had two branches, 1 and 2. This one only has 1. And this, of course, helps us understand what we have and what kind of assets we're running. And of course, this is the results of the scan. And what is also very useful, the Attacker allows us to export this all into Excel in a spreadsheet format, allowing organization to have an understanding of all their service on the networks, all the open ports, what kind of software they're running on it, and if they use vulnerability scan, they can also figure out what vulnerabilities are present as well. And there's another very useful module of Attacker, which is brute forcer. So it allows you, for example, to scan your network and find out if there are any devices with default credentials like admin. So that's a very good use case for it.
That's awesome. It's amazing that you're able to sum up such a complex tool so well. It says a lot about how easy it is to use too, just all encompassing. So great. And the OWASP demo, you know, using OWASP for the demo is actually kind of a good overview of OWASP because of the information. Yeah, this is really, really
Exactly. So when we speak at the hacker conferences, this tool works fantastically because now we have another scanner. Now, of course, we have OWASP Zap and AMAS, which are another very good sort of offensive tools which can be used for scanning and reconnaissance. But we appeal to basically wider audience. So it's not just developers, but it's also security engineers, and just generally with particularly with NetHacker is also an appeal to security managers and CISOs because it will help them understand what kind of what exists in the network, and also can help people to tackle the problem of shadow IT as well, because they can just scan the network and see what they have.
perfect. So all encompassing. Thank you again for joining me. And everyone, the contact information will be available for Sam. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you, Zoe.
Stay.